Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. He called me baby, baby, all night long. I've got no rhythm. And today I'm going to do another one of my accidental authors. It's a kind of a wonky one. Brian from Bookish already did Julian Barnes when he looked at his accidental authors, but I thought I would just cover it and get it out. I've been trying to go through mine sort of alphabetically, so I didn't want to ignore it. And I've also got, as well as some basic Julian Barnes books, I've also got a kind of interesting sideline, which probably won't get spoken about much anywhere else. So I'm going to do those. So Julian Barnes has always been there, but he's sort of half a rank below, in my mind at least. Sorry, Julian, half a rank below Ian McEwan and Martin Amis, late Martin Amis, and Kazuo Ishiguro, Salman Rushdie. Julian Barnes always felt to me like he wasn't quite there, didn't quite have the weight of those, I guess, contemporaries of his. Paul Auster, who I've spoken about in this series. I first came across Barnes at the time of Flaubert's Parrot. So this book comes out in 1984, maybe his third or his fourth novel. I acquired this in April 1986, so I'm 17 years old. It's got my name in it, written very neatly, much neater than I tend to write these days. And I don't know if you can see there is a little embossed. I was given for my 40th, 50th birthday a press that you could take a page between it and it says from the library of DCS, which are my initials. And I did this, between up to about 1986. I was doing these little books. I didn't acquire and read nearly as many books as I have done subsequently, but it was a kind of thing. I had a very small library of books. I fancied myself a reader, and I would do this. It's long got lost in several moves. It's a shame because if I'd had it on every single book, that would be kind of fun. But instead, I just write my name in each book. But as I acquired this in 1986, I think it took me about 25, 30 years to read it. I might have started it. I didn't really understand what literary fiction was at the time. I didn't know anything about Flaubert. In between buying this in 86 and reading this 20, 25 years later, I did read Madame Bovary, but I didn't know anything about Flaubert. I didn't know except this was a book. It wasn't so thick, and I had it sitting there, and it took me years and years and years to read it. I did read it eventually, but my inability to read it at the time meant that I just didn't go back and read more Barnes. Metroland was fairly big, and then the breakthrough. This was sort of a pre-breakthrough. The big breakthrough book which everyone was reading was A History of the World in 10.5 chapters, which I never read, and didn't because I had this sitting on my shelf and I never read it, so I wasn't going to buy more Barnes that I didn't read. Anyway, eventually I read this. Maybe not till after I read the next one, which is the book that really made me read Barnes. And this was Arthur and George, and this is one of these sort of giant paperback sort of airport editions that would have come out. I don't have a date in it. For some reason, I didn't write my name, my date in it. But the book is published in 2005. This is copyright in 2005, so this would have been around then. I might have got it from one of my online book clubs at the time, and as I said, it's one of these like airport editions, but the whole price of $11.99. I don't know how much I paid for this. No, I wouldn't have paid that much for a book. And a meaty novel, sort of historical novel. So the author of the title is Arthur Conan Doyle, and George is somebody he meets and gets involved in, and there is some intrigue and a jolly good. This was a fantastic, really good, rompy, fun novel with the crosses sort of fiction, non-fiction. So we've got this real character of Conan Doyle, who we know is associated with mysteries and intrigues, and there was a good story here, and I found this thoroughly entertaining and rocks along about 350 pages, and sort of said, oh, okay, maybe I should be paying more attention to Barnes. At this point, I was already deep into, say, all those contemporaries, Amis, McEwan, Ishiguro, Rushdie, etc., and I had just been steering away from Barnes. So read Arthur and George. I think maybe after that went back and read Flaubert's Parrot, and then sort of didn't really know what to do, and then he wins the Booker Prize. So 2011, we get the sense of an ending. A sort of short novel, I think, perhaps not terribly typical. Like this was very short and criticised for being a short novel to win. So it's 150 pages I'm looking at here. I didn't love this. After Arthur and George, I didn't think it was so great. Some people have loved this and think it's a great sort of Booker winner. I compare this to McEwan's Amsterdam as I don't think greatly representative of the author's work, but bite-sized enough, and the award is sort of given as recognition in this instance, not always, not every year, there's recognition for not having won in previous years, or sometimes cases not having been nominated. Sense of Ending didn't love that, and then came a little later and picked up the Noise of Time, also in hardback. Bought this in 2016 and read this sort of relatively short novel as well. I don't remember, 180 pages. I don't remember much. Okay, other novels of his that I haven't read. I'm looking at this, say Metroland early on, Cross Channel, England, Love, etc. I just have not really invested a whole amount of time and energy in Julian Barnes. So in that respect, he's kind of an accidental author. That's 4 novels by Julian Barnes. But let's take a sideways turn for a moment. And let me just read. Where should I? Is it from here? Yeah. So let's just read the author bio from. This is Flaubert's Parrots. This is early in his career, the 3rd or 4th novel in the 1980s. This is published, and this is the bio here. Julian Barnes was born in Leicester in 1946 and was educated in London and Oxford. He was deputy literary editor of the Sunday Times and is currently television critic for the Observer. He has written 3 novels. This was his 4th one, I guess, at the time. Oh no, this is his 3rd one. First one, Metroland, won the 1981 Somerset Maugham Award. His second one, Before She Met Me, was chosen by Philip Larkin, one of my favourite poets of all time, as one of his books of the year, and is available in Pavan, I guess was the publisher, and this was Picador. So this was his 3rd novel, and that's his 8th. So born in Leicester in 1946, educated in London, Oxford, deputy literary editor of the Sunday Times. That is his official author bio, which gets adapted, I guess, right up until the most recent one. The author of 11 novels, also written short stories, so then doesn't even talk about his lives in London. That's the kind of thing we learn about the author. Then, by the by, and I don't know how much at the time this was a secret. Maybe it was an open secret. Maybe it was a joke. This is pre-internet, so it wasn't like everyone could find everything out in 10 seconds flat. But Barnes had a sort of second career. He published 4 novels, all about one particular character, a private eye, a bisexual private eye in London in the early 80s, a character called Duffy, and he published these under the name Dan Kavanagh. Kavanagh, you may, or again, if you follow Brian Bookish, you'll know Kavanagh was the last name of Barnes's wife, who was a literary agent called Pat Kavanagh, and Brian has a fantastic video. I'll try and remember to link to it below about how this caused a breakup in the friendship of Amos and Julian Barnes, because Pat Kavanagh, Julian Barnes' wife, was Martin Amos's literary agent until he left her and signed a lucrative contract with an agent, Andrew Wiley, I think, in America, in order to get a huge advance for his book, The Information, and they fell out for a number of years, and but I think they rebuilt the friendship before, long before Amos passed away. But so that's where I think the word Kavanagh comes from. But there are 4 of these books, so these are fun, light, throwaway, sort of comic PI novels, crime happens, serious things, but they're sort of rough and ready, set in London, starring this character Duffy, who has got a living girlfriend, but occasionally brings home other men or flirts with other women. It's a sort of sexual free-for-all, but it's not. I mean, their books are not about shagging all the time. That's just part of this character, which is, I guess, a little unusual for a sort of wide boy ruffian PI in London in the 80s. And the fun thing here is that each one of these, I've got 4 books here, I'll take you through each one of them, and then we'll be done. Each one of them has an original author bio for this fictional character, Dan Kavanagh, who was actually Julian Barnes. So in the first one, Duffy, which came out, I believe, in 1981. So this is very early on. He's only published 1 or 2 novels at this point. This is published it would have been published direct in paper. Oh, first published in Great Britain by Jonathan Cape. I don't know if that means it came out in hardback in 1980, and dedicated to Pat Kavanagh, who's of course Julian Barnes' wife. Julian Barnes, who was actually Dan Kavanagh. And the author bio here, remember Julian Barnes, born in Leicester, educated at Oxford, was literary Sunday Times literary editor. Dan Kavanagh was born in County Sligo in 1946. Having devoted his adolescence to truancy, venery, and petty theft, he left home at 17 and signed on as a deckhand on a Liberian tanker. After jumping ship at Montevideo, he roamed across the Americas, taking a variety of jobs. He was a steer wrestler, a waiter on roller skates at a drive-in eatery in Tucson, and a bouncer in a gay bar in San Francisco. He is currently working in London at jobs he declines to specify and lives in North Islington. And that's the bio for Dan Kavanagh in the first of these series, Duffy. Followed up Duffy 1 year later, I believe, with the next in the series, which is Fiddle City. And I picked all these up secondhand because they're just glorious sort of early 80s paperbacks. Triad Granada, I don't believe is publishing paperbacks anymore. And here we've got in the second one, so this is published in 1983, originally published in 81 by Jonathan Cape again. So predating even Flaubert's Parrot. Dan Kavanagh was born in County Sligo in 1946. After an uncompromising adolescence, at 19, he became an assistant entertainment officer on a Japanese supertanker and travelled the world. He has been a pianist in a waterfront bar in Macau, a baggage handler at San Francisco International Airport, and has flown light planes on the Colombian cocaine route. He is currently working in London at jobs he declines to specify, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that was the second in the series, Fiddle City, which Book Choice said has the snap and crackle of Raymond Chandler. I remember these were super fun. What does it say? Oh, just the blurb of the first one. It says, it's 4 years since Duffy was framed and thrown off the force, but now he's back in a private capacity and on his old patch, Soho's tawdry golden mile of sex shops, peep shows and strip joints. And it doesn't take him long to get into trouble. Deep, dirty, violent trouble. That's the kind of mood we're in. The third in the Duffy series, and this is now published in paperback by Penguin, called Putting the Boot In, and sort of a gangstery picture on the front. Sharp, savvy, and cynical bisexual private eye Duffy is back, according to this, and this is published first published by Jonathan Cape in 85, and as follows. Dan Kavanagh, born in County Sligo in 1946, after an uncompromising adolescence, at 17, he signed apprentice forms with Accrington Stanley Football Club, but was released by the club shortly afterwards. Since then, he has played in numerous Sunday leagues where his goalkeeping has been seen to make up in aggression for what it lacks in science. He's currently working in London in jobs he declines to specify. And then the last of the 4 Dan Kavanagh Duffy series, the last one is Going to the Dogs, where we finally get an acknowledgement, top drawer comedy, loaded with wit, spiked with malice, and lashed with darkly comic fun. And so more of Duffy being this sort of odd bit of rough. And here we get Dan Kavanagh, born in County Sligo in 1946. After uncompromising adolescence, he came to England, where he enjoyed a range of employment at various points on the social spectrum. For a while, he was an assistant marshal at Romford Greyhound Stadium, but a spell in the domestic and service side of a leading catering firm has also enabled him to sample the high life. He is currently working in London at jobs he declines to specify and lives in North Islington. Those are 4 secret Julian Barnes books that tickled me. I like the idea of him writing under a pseudonym, and I like the idea of PI books. There was something about the genre-ness of them, which actually, in some ways, they're not great books, but they're fun, and I enjoyed them exactly in the terms in which they're written, and kind of have more fondness for them than I do for perhaps any of the actual Julian Barnes novels, maybe with the exception of Arthur and George. That is my accidental author. That's some Julian Barnes and some sort of Julian Barnes. I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.